Support for this podcast comes from Home Depot Pro Trades. At the Home Depot Pro Trades, our job is helping you do yours. Powered by HD Supply, we are uniquely positioned to help drive your business through unrivaled access to professional-grade plumbing, electrical, and HVAC products, and innovative business solutions such as our Stockwise Inventory Management program, fully customizable to meet your needs and improve productivity. Our national network of distribution centers and more than 2,200 store locations provide national reach with a local focus, giving unmatched convenience and product availability. We power pros to do more.
Welcome to The Successful Contractor, powered by Certain Path, formerly Success Group International, a show for residential contractors about residential contractors. We chronicle business journeys, share insights, and celebrate successes in this wonderful industry. I'm your host, Bob Houchin. As a reminder, all episodes of The Successful Contractor are available on YouTube as well as your podcast player of choice. And for more information on how Certain Path can put your contracting company on a certain path to success, visit our website, www.mycertainpath.com. I'm excited to bring to you an interview with Jonathan Unzueta Rojas of Top Flight Electric in Winter Haven, Florida, which is in between Tampa and Orlando. Today, Jonathan's a service manager for Top Flight, but in 2022, he was in the field full-time as an electrician who sold and installed his own work. And Jonathan had an incredible year, selling over $764,000. In a small market like Winter Haven, that's highly, highly impressive. Jonathan was one of 100 electricians recognized at our Certain Path Awards Gala for selling over $500,000 in residential electric work. 15 sold over $1 million. Now, some of those individuals didn't install the work, an install team did, but still, it's highly, highly impressive. So Certain Path electrical members, if you're not going to Service Essentials and Electricians Advanced Training, please make it a priority to send your people. Non-Certain Path electrical members, what if every truck in your fleet did $500,000? What if they did $600,000, $700,000, maybe even $1 million? Come to a profit day and discover how you can make that happen. Okay, without further ado, here's my conversation with Jonathan Unzueta Rojas of Top Flight Electric in Winter Haven, Florida, who sold and installed over $764,000 in residential electric work. I hope you enjoy our conversation and take away a nugget or two.
And thank you so much for making time to sit with me this morning. I really, really appreciate it.
No problem.
Very excited to have you. Before we get into it, for everyone watching, listening, can you share your name, your company name, where you guys are located?
Sure. My name is Jonathan Unzueta Rojas. I'm with Billy Bishop. Company is Top Flight Electric, and that's in Winter Haven, Florida.
Very good, very good. And we're sitting for an excellent reason. We're at a Certain Path Expo, galas in a night or two. You're going to be recognized for having a fantastic year. Let's brag about yourself. What'd you end up doing in sales last?
I believe I'm at 764,000.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's great. Now, I want to go through the call process. People that have watched and listened know us. I like to do that. But before I do that, I love learning people's backgrounds and how they got to where they are. So
sure.
Before we hit record, you were telling me you come from actually the D.C. area, correct? Maryland area?
Right. Yes. The Silver Spring area here in Maryland. So that's where I grew up and went to school and got into the trade here.
Yeah. Very good. Let's talk about it. Why you said your high school offered trade class, but what made you decide to take those classes versus maybe take traditional classes or something like that? What about the trades?
So basically, what my uncles, my dad, and so forth, they've always been in construction.
Okay.
And I was always intrigued on how electrical worked. I always wondered, how do you hit a switch and a light bulb turns on? How does that work? So, and working with my uncles and remodeling homes and stuff like that, with my father, it just always called my attention.
Yeah.
So I got the opportunity, to back when I was in high school, we had that trade school.
Yeah.
Next to our high school. It was they'll let us go half day to school, to high school, and then the other half day was go into that trade school.
Yeah.
So it was pretty much hands-on. We learned everything as far as, how the light works.
Sure.
All the way to, transformers and everything. So it was pretty informative, very, very neat. Like I said, all hands-on.
Mm-hmm. So you're around it, sounds like, your whole life. So it
Yeah.
seemed like a natural transition for you.
Yeah, for sure. So
Now, did you work for a contracting company up here before you moved to Florida, or?
No. I actually took a different route.
Okay.
Afterwards. Winters are harsh here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So working in the industry up here, I kind of doubted myself or whatnot. So we actually went to selling insurance.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I got some sales background.
Yeah. Sure.
Which was, I can't complain. It was a very fun experience, very, very interesting, and I guess it worked on my people skills as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was, it was a good transition, I should say. But yeah,
Interesting experience for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And then you said your wife worked on you and said it's time to go home. She's from Florida.
right.
Had enough of the cold, right?
Sure. Yep. So yeah, when we got married, we lived here in Maryland for 2 years, and then yes, she's from Florida, so she said, I miss home.
Yeah.
Winters are brutal, and so we ended up back in Florida.
Sure. Sure. Now, what called you back to the trades? Why not go back to the insurance business? Did you just not like it? What about electrical called you back?
I figured, sitting down in the office, staring at a computer for, hours and hours, it wasn't my thing anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
It gets to you. A lot of people say, being behind the computer is not work.
Right.
But it's a mental work. It's just,
Sure.
it drains you. And so you're like a zombie when you go back home.
Yeah.
So I knew I had this in my background, as far as electrical, and it was something that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so my wife pushed me to, hey, maybe you should do electrical again,
Yeah.
So I listened to her, as we should.
Good brownie points, by the way.
And so, I listened and went back to the trade.
Yeah.
And then this time was service.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and you worked for a company that was tied to certain path at one point. I'll share. We'd always cut it later, but it was Mr. Sparky.
Yeah.
And then they were part of the Certain Path family many years ago before they were sold off. Talk about the kind of your onboarding experience, because I know they train well.
Yes.
So how much training did you have to go through before you were allowed to kind of run your own truck?
Sure. So what they put me through, because obviously I had all my certificates to show for it.
Yeah.
What was interesting to me was they wanted me to start off as an apprentice, which I kind of took a step back, because I was like, I'm not an apprentice.
Right.
But at that point, I kind of figured if I wanted to get back into the industry and get back into doing what I love, kind of want let my ego down.
Yeah.
let my pride down, and say, you know what, if I want to get back into it, I gotta start somewhere.
Yeah.
And I know for electricians, we have a lot of ego, a lot of pride. I guess it just goes around in the trade too.
Yeah.
But set that aside and said, okay, I'll show you guys what I'm all about.
Yeah.
So it was 3 months of riding around with the techs and helping out the techs. As soon as the techs knew that I knew what I was doing, I was like the most requested apprentice.
Sure. Right.
So everybody, was like, let's, I need Jonathan.
Yeah. So 3 months, it probably felt like forever, but it's pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, especially because transitioning from the insurance industry to the trade, I did get a pay cut, which I was not expecting.
Right.
I was thinking, electricians get paid so much money, and so it was a little tough. But, I was like, I'll stick it out, 3 months. If it doesn't work out, I can always just go back to, insurance.
Right.
It worked out.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I had to do the service call training. And so that was, I believe that was what they wanted to make sure I was comfortable with, and what they wanted to make sure, because they knew I knew electrical.
Right.
So they just wanted to know that I was going to be able to service a home.
Yeah. Follow the system.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. The
For
way
sure.
that, they wanted me to.
Yeah. Very good. Now, how long were you there before you went to Top Flight?
2 years.
2 years. Very good. And you had a friend that left to Top Flight, right? And he said,
Yes.
Billy's this is a place to be, right?
Yeah.
What did he say about Top Flight?
He mentioned as far as Billy, how well he takes care of his employees, and it sounded like too good to be true scenario,
Yeah. Right.
But gave him the benefit of the doubt, and gave him a call.
Yeah.
And
And here you are.
And here I am.
That's great. That's awesome. Well, let's talk about how you handle business in the field. So when you're driving it to a call, how do you kind of prepare yourself for what you're about to run into?
Sure. So
How much background do you have on what the problem is? How do you get yourself mentally ready?
Right. So basically, we have on our system, we use ServiceLine, but on the system we have a brief description of what we're going to go out there to do. I don't rely solely on that.
Sure.
Because the CSRs, they write down the information that they're given.
Yeah.
Customer gives them that information, but they can forget, some other stuff that they want us to take a look at.
Absolutely.
So I don't rely solely on that. I get a brief description, brief idea on what I'm there for, but in reality, I know I'm there to make their home safe.
Right.
So that's where I think it makes a difference, because I've done it the other way, where I'm just there for this.
Oh yeah. Sure.
And so you get stuck on that, and you don't address anything else in the house. So as far as getting ready for that call, I go ahead and take a look at it. Take a look at how far I'm driving. And that way I know what kind of music I'm going to be playing.
Yeah. I was going to ask about music. Yeah. Sure.
Or motivational podcasts.
Oh yeah. What do you listen to? I put you on the spot.
No, that's fine. One of the I'm Christian and Christian background. So one of the motivational preachers that I listen to, Stephen Furtick.
Okay.
I also listen to Eric Thomas.
Oh yeah, sure.
Pretty good as well. Jensen Franklin, he's pretty good as well. So there's a couple things that I listen to.
Kind of get yourself hyped up and in good mental space.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So yeah, that's
very good. All right. So you pull up to the home. You get out of your car quickly and you knock on the door, and then the homeowner lets you in. How do you kind of start making those early that initial connection so they can see that they can trust you, and kind of no one really wants an electrician over, right? Yeah, I'd much rather be doing whatever. So how do you kind of disarm them a little bit?
So I believe introduction is key.
Okay.
We do have the system where they get a picture of who I am,
right,
and a brief description of my interest. I believe in my interest, it says that I like to play the guitar.
Oh, okay.
It's a big, I've had plenty of customers, hey, I see that you play the guitar,
That's neat.
But as far as the introduction, it's more like, hey, I'm Jonathan with Top Flight Electric, and a lot of people, because they've seen my picture, they associate that right away with my face. So they put a name to the face, and, it kind of gets them, okay, so they said this is the guy they were going to send.
Right.
This is the guy at my door, So yeah, I know nowadays handshake is,
you never know.
You never know. So I always, extend my hand for a handshake, and there's been a couple who have just ignored it, passed it, and it gets it a little awkward on my end, but just put it away real quick.
Yeah, it is what it is.
But
right.
there's a lot of people that are still, doing the handshakes up.
Sure.
And handshake, just symbolizes trust,
Right.
So as soon as they have that handshake, it's they let me in their house.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What are some things you might, as little starter conversations? What are some things you might talk about? We talk about a sincere compliment. Would you do that kind of stuff?
Yeah, definitely. So if, that, if they have something in their home, that, calls my attention.
Mm-hmm.
I remember this one customer, she had, these frames, and they were butterflies, and so those were real butterflies. I didn't know it at the time, but they looked very, very nice because they were like, purple, orange, and so forth. And so it's bright colors. And, I asked her about them, and I said, these are very nice, and she just went off on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I want to say we spent a good 15 minutes just talking about the butterflies.
That's cool.
Totally forgot about while I was there.
Right.
It just basically, sincere compliments about, their home, what they have, who they are, find out about their families. You see toys laying around and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You have little ones. I have little ones. So I can really relate with that.
So you try to relate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. Always ask them where we're from. Here in Florida, people are not really from Florida.
Right. Right. Right.
You don't find people, that are originally from there. There is some, but not really. So I always want to find out where they're from.
Yeah.
I've found out there's not a lot of Marylanders.
Yeah. Okay.
Everybody's always from, Ohio or, somewhere in the center of the states.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. It definitely, and it's fun to find out like where they're from.
Sure.
I like to talk about where they're from.
That's right. That's right.
So that's always a big key. When you're in a house, are you from around here? And they'll get off to, no, I'm from here, this, and then you start talking about that.
Right. It's the follow-up questions that are key, right?
Exactly.
You can't just say where you're from. Oh, okay, that's great. And then go on your.
No, yeah. It's like, until we brought you to Florida or, stuff like that.
Yeah.
A lot of conversation goes.
That's cool. Do you kind of give a credibility statement early on? Like, I've been doing electrical work for so many years. Or are you just more casual? And that kind of comes up later on.
Right. Yeah. That kind of comes up later on in the, it's kind of more like when we're discussing their issues and what they want us to work for or work on. They usually, and they're like, well, it's been like this for years, this and that, and then it's not working or, this. So I kind of like let them know, hey, listen, I've been doing this for 10 plus years. I'm certain that I can fix your issue today.
Yeah, you offer that reassurance.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Exactly.
All right, well, let's rewind a little bit before we get to the actual issue. Are there any other questions, you're talking about where they're from? You got to make that transition to why you're there today. Are there what certain questions you always ask to kind of get more about what the problem is or
Sure.
the home? What do you like?
Usually the question that I always ask is once we're done talking about, whatever it is that we're talking about, is so what's going on today?
Yeah.
It kind of like shifts the conversation over to, okay, why did you call me out here today?
Right.
So yeah, that's basically the main question I always ask. So what's going on today?
Right.
I don't know. It sounds like, we're doctors or whatnot out there, because that's what a doctor would ask, what's going on with you today?
Yeah. Diagnose it, right?
Exactly. And then, they start talking about your problem,
Right.
So same thing for them in the house, they'll, once you ask that question, they kind of open up and say, well, you know what? I called in and, this outlet's not working, or I called in and this is not working, whatever the case is. Want to get a hot tub in the backyard or whatnot.
Yeah.
It's just all kinds of calls that we get.
Sure.
Yeah.
On troubleshooting calls, when you got to explain someone, there's just diagnostic fee charge, right?
Sure.
They go, well, didn't I just pay a service fee? Do you get that? Like, how do you explain the value of the diagnostic? Why am I paying X amount for this?
Sure.
Yeah.
I guess I want to say I'm a little direct.
Yeah.
And I let them know. It's like, $49 is, to get us out here.
Yeah.
Okay. With that $49, I did remove your panel cover. I did inspect that and make sure everything's, good in there. There's no hazards in there. And we do the 5-minute safety inspection.
Okay.
So, you go around, test some GFIs, test some outlets, make sure everything, I like to pull out some outlets, see the connections in there.
Okay.
So that's very important. I know it's, sometimes you get that where it's like, oh, they didn't call us out there for outlets.
Yeah.
Well, I understand, but when you go to the doctor and, your eye's hurting, they'll still check your heart rate and they'll still check, your weight, your height,
Yeah.
and all this other stuff. And it's like, I'm not here for that, you know?
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah.
So, you know, same thing for a home, you know. I know you're not there for that, but, you know, if you have connections that need to be repaired, you know, you can point that out to the customer.
Okay.
Cover all your bases.
Yeah.
Because, you know, and we let them know, because there's some customers like, why are you doing all that?
Sure.
You know?
Absolutely.
Well, you know, you called me out here. I want to make sure that your home is safe.
Right.
You know, if I don't do that and I leave and something happens, you're going to question yourself. You're going to question us.
Yeah.
Well, you were here in my house. Why didn't you tell me about this? You know?
Right.
So,
And you're that straightforward.
yes.
That's
I let them know, you know, and it just gets them thinking. And it's like, you know what? You're right. Yeah. While you're at it, check the outside plugs too, or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes. That's, and as far as the diagnostic, you know, I let them know, hey, listen, you know, because I've already done all this, you know, where I check all this stuff. And then so I let them know, you know, hey, this is something, unfortunately, that I have to take further. You know, I got to pull out more tools. I got to, you know, take more things apart.
Yeah.
You know, and so there is a diagnostic charge with this. You know, our diagnostic charge includes us diagnosing this whole circuit. It includes a minor repair, whether it's a bad connection, a bad outlet, you know, a bad switch, bad breaker. I'll take care of that within this price. The price can change if I have to, you know, run a new wire. You know, if I have to refeed the circuit somehow, the price can't change. I just want to let you know and make you aware of that.
Yeah.
You know? But as far as the diagnostic, usually within this price, I can figure out the problem because I've been doing this for X amount of years, you know?
Right.
So yeah, I always reassure them, you know, hey, listen, you know, if it is something, because I always start at a diagnostic level 2.
Okay.
So if it is something that, you know, I tell them, if it is something I'm going to fix in 20 minutes and 30 minutes or whatnot, I'll save you some money. I'll drop this level, you know, to level 1.
Yeah.
And I'll save you some money.
So they see your other side.
Of course, yeah, definitely. You know, and I always tell them, I like to be fair with my customers. You know?
Yeah.
That's a phrase I always say. You know, I like to be fair with my customers. You know, if it is something that's going to be relatively quick, I'll go ahead and drop that down.
Okay.
There's no sense of me, you know, charging you whatever the price is for a level 2.
Sure.
You know, it's basically, it makes them feel, you know, comfortable and say, you know what, this guy's he's into my best interest.
Yeah.
You know, he started out this price, but, you know, he's going to drop it down if it's not going to take him long, you know?
Right.
And usually it doesn't. I mean, you know, when you know electrical,
Yeah.
yeah, you usually know, we walk in there, you already know what's going on.
Sure.
You know? It's like, okay, I can figure this out, you know?
What do you say when you go, well, it could go up in price, right? And people go,
Yeah.
how much?
Right.
How do you handle that? How much? Like,
Yeah. So I always let them know as far as how much. I was like, I don't know the price off the top of my head.
Okay.
But before we actually increase that price, you know, before we actually talk about increasing the price, I'll let you know why we have to do this. You know, if it's a break in the line, if it's, you know, something going on with that circuit, I always let them know why we have to do this. So I kind of steer them away from the price,
Yeah.
and kind of like, you know, take them into why it's necessary for us to do this.
And how in depth it is.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you do your safety inspection before, right?
Yeah.
As you kind of you take notes on what you see and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Okay. And the people that go, what do you do? And like you explain, like, hey, I'm here just to make sure you're safe. That's
Right.
your big thing. With it.
Exactly.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Have you had people that will refuse you to do these?
Yes.
What do you do in those situations? You just try and see what's in that room you're at?
I respect them.
Yeah.
You know, as far as, you know, what they, you know, you're here for this and this is all I want you to do.
Right.
You know, I let them know that's perfectly fine. However, for my safety, I still have to do a safety inspection on at least the electrical box.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, you know, they understand that portion.
Yeah.
So I let them know it's for my safety, you know, in this point, because obviously they probably don't care about safety. Even though they're living there, they're not going to let me do a safety inspection.
Sure.
But, you know, I still want to go over to the panel and remove that. Always ask questions as far as the electrical box.
Okay. What do you ask? I'm intrigued.
So when I'm removing the electrical panel, I always try for them to be there.
Right. I was saying.
Yeah, I don't like the fact, you know, some people are like, oh, the electrical box is in the garage. Go and take a look at it.
Right.
kind of like, where's your electrical panel? Can you please show me where it's at? And they'll take you there. So, try to have them there with you because they'll see exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
So as I'm taking the screws off, I'll ask the customer, have you ever taken a look inside one of these?
Right.
I want to say 80% of the customers have not. So,
I didn't even know I had one.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't even know where it was.
Right. Yeah.
So, usually it's a no.
Yeah.
Like, well, stick around. We'll show you inside.
Okay.
We'll see what we're looking at. So,
Yeah.
take the panel cover off, and next follow-up question is, well, I take it since you've never machined inside one of these, you've never done any maintenance inside this panel. No, I didn't even know you had to. So then I started explaining to them, it's one of those things where people think electrical lasts forever. Well, it doesn't. Breakers don't last forever. So I explained to them, it's recommended that every 15 to 20 years you do some electrical maintenance to your system, replacing all your breakers, retying down connections. So, get that in their head.
Right.
And get them thinking about it, surge protection, a lot of homes don't have surge protection.
Right.
So I'll let them know, I don't see any surge protection here. And I know the power company offers a surge protector. And so I always ask, and I say, are you paying for that surge protector on the power company side? A lot of customers don't know.
Yeah.
So I don't know, or some customers do know, and they say yes. So I always ask them, like, how much are you paying for that? And so, it's anywhere from $8 to $12 a month.
Yeah.
But I let them know, you pay that forever. It's never your surge protector.
Right.
And you pay that, for as long as you want power, which is forever.
Yeah.
So, you're never going to stop paying for that.
Yeah.
So I let them know, we offer a surge protector. We want to make sure that your home is surge protected. We have top of the line surge protectors. Let them know as far as what they cover. And I let them know they're your surge protectors.
Yeah.
You don't even have to pay the power company surge protector. Once you pay for this one, you're not going to have to pay for another surge protector again.
So you show them how to save money with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Show them how to save money, give them information on the panel. And they're there and they're watching everything.
Yeah.
Doing, so
What do you say to people? Don't they have those power strips everywhere? Growing up, I thought that's all I needed. So what do you say? Are those good enough to produce a high display?
So as far as the power strips, yes. I let them know that's perfect that you have power strips, but it's only connecting whenever you're plugging into those. When we're talking about surge protecting the house, you're talking about every wire that leaves this panel.
Yeah.
So in essence, you're really talking about protecting your range. You can't really throw a surge strip behind your range.
Right.
Protecting your microwave, your fridge, your dishwasher, washer, dryer, stuff like that. Heavy appliances.
All the expensive stuff.
Exactly. So I told them, I always let them know is, the bigger appliances is what you're looking at protecting, because if, all those go at once, that's a hefty bill.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, with the surge protector protecting your home, if it saves all those, that surge protector pays for itself.
Yeah.
On the first use. So it's worth it, to have that.
Sure. How much are you paying attention to people's body language during this? If they're receptive to,
Yeah, a lot. I mean, you can tell if somebody's interested in it. You can tell if somebody's not interested in it.
Right.
Either way,
You still offer it.
exactly. If they're interested or not interested in it, I always let them know when I'm presenting my options. I always let them know and kind of steer them. I know this is what you called me out here for, which is this last option, and I'm here for you. But I do want to start with the peace of mind,
Right.
which is everything we just talked about.
Okay.
Everything that I'm gonna go ahead and recommend that we do today.
Okay.
So let's go over this. So even though they know the option is there to do what they just called me out there for, but we steer them towards, hey, listen, sure, everything we just talked about, I know it's important. I'm letting you know it's important.
Yeah.
Let's, address this today.
Right.
So, in most cases, they at least move up, to like the middle option and say, I think we should do this.
Yeah.
So
That's interesting. What do you, let's go back though, you open that panel up, let's say you walk up to it and, this thing is like ancient, or it's got major issues. How do you but I just called you out to hang a ceiling fan, right? How do you tell someone like this is how do you handle it?
I think your expressions matter as well. So usually when I go to a panel, it's ancient, square QO panel or whatnot. It's been there for ages. Usually I get to the panel and I'm like, ooh,
Yeah, I haven't seen one of these in a while.
Exactly. Or let them know, hey, you got a dinosaur.
Yeah.
So they understand. Yeah, well, and most of them will open up. This house is built. My father built it, or stuff like that. So you build on that. You start building on that, and I let them know. And then you call me out for a ceiling fan. We're going to take care of that. But you have a bigger issue here.
Yeah. So what are you talking about in terms of safety? Like how big of an issue that is? Do you kind of get into that?
Yeah. So because like I mentioned earlier, as far as breakers not lasting forever and whatnot, I usually let them know, hey, because stuff doesn't last forever. You could have the top of the line panel here, top of the line breaker, but you could have a Mercedes and not change the oil. And it's still going to go bad,
Yeah.
So same thing with this. It's like, and I explain the system and how it works. As far as the breakers, I let them know they work off of a spring system. That spring's always stretched out when the breaker's on the on position. I take it because you've never done any maintenance, you've never seen inside the panel, you've never exercised these breakers.
Right.
So turning them off, turning them on, will exercise that spring in there, but you've never done it. So that spring, doesn't have the same tension. That spring is stretched out. So when you have an electrical issue, that breaker might not trip. You want that breaker to trip to cut, where there's a potential hazard. If it doesn't trip, it still continues to send power out there. You're putting yourself in a hazardous condition. So
some people are looking at shaking your head.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. I didn't know that,
Yeah.
Most people are just like, just thought they would trip,
Sure. Yeah. Right. They just take it for granted.
Right. Especially on like our fall breakers.
Mm-hmm.
I always test the button. I always ask for their permission too. Cause I know, we always have this discussion back at the shop, and it's like, well, if you trip those breakers and they don't reset, now you own those breakers.
Right.
But I always ask for the permission. I let them know, hey, listen, these are test buttons. You're supposed to test them anyways. Every 90 days or whatnot, you're supposed to go ahead and test these breakers out. I'm going to go ahead and test them, but I do run into the possibility of them not resetting.
Okay.
So I get their permission.
Yeah.
And I let them know it's supposed to trip.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it doesn't, then there's a problem. So there's some breakers where you go ahead and you do the test button, trip right away.
Yeah.
There's others where it's like you trip, doesn't push the test button, doesn't trip.
Yeah.
And then there's others that because they're stuck and they've been stuck in that position forever, you push it and you can see the little knob,
Yeah. Right.
So it tripped, but it's not the way you want it to.
Sure.
So yeah, you build battle with all that.
Yeah.
Let them know. And so if it doesn't reset, obviously, we let them know, hey, you gotta do some maintenance on this.
Yeah.
And so most of the customers will be like, yeah, just go ahead and do it.
When you hear there's that safety component and you're not protected,
Exactly.
it kind of makes it a lot easier to go, why did you, I'm sure you get a little pushback every once in a while, but
Yeah.
it makes sense to me.
Support for this podcast comes from Angie. Angie is one of the largest home services marketplaces that connects qualified service professionals to project-ready homeowners. With over 25 years of experience and a network of more than 250,000 pros, we've helped more than 150 million people with their home needs. For service professionals, we are the source for everything from new customers and revenue streams to reviews, payments, and perks. With homeowners today investing more than ever, countless projects need a pro to take them on. We make the connection. Reach more homeowners with Angie.
I want to talk about some other kind of like common repairs. How do you talk to homeowners that don't have GFCIs, for example, that really should,
Yeah.
how do you talk about code and why it's important and all that stuff? What do you say?
Just talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just bring it up, as far as arc fault breakers, GFI outlets, or GFI breakers as well. Just talk about it, let them know why it's important. As far as GFIs, you're going to protect against any electrical water shock,
Yeah.
They're required in kitchens, bathrooms, garage, outdoors, So let them know. I know back in the day when they built the house, this probably wasn't code,
Right.
and your grandfathered into the old code, but now it's code and the reason why code changes is for safety.
Yeah.
It's to protect you, Same thing for surge protectors, Your house is not surge protected. It wasn't part of the code back then. Now the code changed, and now you got to have surge protection.
Sure.
So yeah, just basically talk about it, let them know, and let them know why the code changes.
Mm-hmm.
They don't just change it just because they want to change it every year.
And we point that out as you walk through the home. You go, oh, I noticed you don't have the GFI.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
just say,
So usually, if I'm by myself, yes, I'll go ahead and let them know out loud. If I'm with my apprentice,
yeah,
I would point that out to my apprentice and let them know, hey, listen, I don't see any GFIs in the kitchen.
yeah,
Stuff like that.
okay,
Panel doesn't have any arc faults.
right,
things like that.
sure. How do you talk to people like, I just wanted to change out the one outlet? Why are you thinking I need to change them all out?
Sure. So, especially in those scenarios, I usually let them know. It's like, look, listen, this one outlet is going to cost you X amount of money.
Yeah.
If we take care of all of them right now, you're actually going to get a deal.
Okay.
Okay. Aside from that, you're having that issue on this one outlet. The connections are the same on all the other outlets.
Right.
That means that you're having that problem here. You're going to probably start having that problem everywhere else.
Right.
Every time that we come out here, do you really want to pay X amount of money, or do you just want to go ahead and take care of everything all at once?
That's good.
And usually customers are like, well, yeah, I can see that, because changing out just one outlet with the diagnostic, it's not cheap,
Yeah.
but at the same time, letting them know, hey, this is how much you can pay today,
Right.
or this is how much you can pay today.
That's good.
And not have me out here, every month or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
There's that time element.
Yeah.
You plant that seed. Oh, no, I don't want to have to try and take off work and do all that.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah.
How about smoke detectors? That's one thing. It's like, I didn't realize this until I started working in this 10 years ago. That you got to replace those things every 10 years, right?
Yeah.
So when you see the yellow smoke detectors, how do you talk to smoke detectors?
So, piece of information that I've learned, once again, I didn't know about them, but the smoke detectors actually are painted with the special paint that's assigned to yellow out after 10 years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that was a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you see a white ceiling
Yeah.
with this yellow device on there,
Yeah.
and nobody likes us to see that.
Yeah.
And so they were designed that way. So that way, if you see that, it triggers you to, I got to change that out.
Yeah.
Get a white one up there, But it was designed with that purpose, but a bigger purpose was the safety,
Sure.
and they were supposed to be replaced every 10 years.
Right.
So I build on that. That's a big, value builder. When I give that information to the customer, let them know, why that yellow's out like that,
Yeah.
and so
It invites a conversation.
look,
Yeah.
this is why, because every 10 years they're going to keep yellowing out. Every 10 years they have to be replaced.
Mm-hmm.
We actually, I don't know if everybody knows this. I'm pretty sure, most of you guys do, but there's actually a smoke that you can buy, a little can of smoke to test them out.
Oh, be darned. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's pretty neat in most of the cases. You got to be careful with them too, because once again, you gotta warn the customer.
Right.
Listen, I know they're not working because the past 10 years, but if I do test them out with the smoke,
Yeah.
it could be a potential that they're not going to turn off.
Right.
You're going to have to replace them anyways.
Yeah.
So if you would like this demonstration, I can demonstrate, and so most cases they don't set off.
Right.
And then it's like, there's the smoke.
Yeah.
It's not protecting your home, So once we're done installing the new ones, then you could test them out again.
Yeah.
Go off and then just,
Do you just sell one type of smoke detector replacement, or do you start talking to the interconnected and,
Yes.
How do you kind of get them to think about what the replacement option?
So there's, obviously here in Florida, there's different types of homes. Okay, so you have the mobile homes, which the mobile homes, there's no attic.
Oh, yeah.
You can still do the interconnected ones, or you run wires underneath and go up the wall and place them on the wall. We can still do that.
Yeah.
But when we start talking to our customers about, hey, we can power them up and interconnect them wirelessly.
Yeah.
So we do have a wireless connectivity within all the smoke detectors. So that way you don't have to, daisy chain all of them.
Yeah.
Then a lot of customers go down that route.
Okay.
So
So you start having that conversation.
Yeah.
Let's see, when you see that and they go, oh, man,
Yeah.
it's not protected. Yeah.
well, mobile homes too, like a lot of the mobile homes, they have like the battery operated ones.
Sure.
And they only have one in the hallway.
Mhm.
And so, when I see that and I see it's only battery, because I usually take it off.
Right.
Right. Base, there's no wires back there. It's just the wall.
Yeah.
I'll let them know. It's like, yeah, it's just really not doing anything for you, you know?
Right.
So yeah, we have those. Interesting enough, we have a neighborhood,
Okay.
and there's been a couple houses that I've burnt down.
Oh, my goodness.
Not because of anything we did.
Sure. Yeah, I want to put that out there right now. Yeah. Right.
No, they called us out there because in the garage, somebody went out to the garage and the dumpster, they put oil in the trash can. And so they're plastic and, started burning up, and it's in the garage. So by the time it gets inside the house, so it was a couple instances now. So we got called out. To install heat detectors
Okay.
in the garage, and they interconnect with the smoke detector.
Yeah.
So, we've actually been doing that, where we go into the houses, we let them know, hey, look, you got the smoke detectors, that's great and all, but if something starts, going on in the garage,
Yeah.
there's no smoke detector there,
Wow.
and you really don't want to put a smoke detector in the garage because it'll set off instantly. But let them know there's heat detectors that interconnect with your smokes.
Yeah.
And so that's been a good sale.
Yeah. Sure, it's easy to talk about when you can say you had a couple neighbors.
Yes.
They absolutely get it in there right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Definitely.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. How much lighting do you sell and do? Like, will you recommend, hey, it's kind of dark?
Lighting. Yeah. So a lot of people, they like the Reese's lights. They like that look or whatnot.
Sure.
So yeah.
You let them bring it up, though. You don't suggest it much, or will you bring it?
It depends.
Yeah.
It depends. If I walk into a room and I see them turn on a lamp or something, I'll let them know. It's like, hey, why isn't there? Because there is houses that they didn't do that,
Right.
But the switch works on the outlet,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's one of those. Like I said, it depends. If I see that their kitchen is, nice or whatnot, and they don't have under cabinet lighting, I let them know. So,
Yeah.
we'll really make this pop. And some lighting under the cabinets, and we can definitely take care of it.
Yeah.
So, there's different scenarios in different cases.
Sure. How about your club membership? You guys have a club.
Yeah.
You sell the club. When do you bring it up? When do you first kind of bring it up?
Usually it's when we're presenting the options.
Okay.
So we're presenting the options, and because our system defaults and it has a little box there where it says potential savings,
Right.
and the number is in red. A lot of people look at that number, or I believe the number's in green, but they look at that number, they think that's the price.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So, because it is an up to 10% discount, they see, let's say it's a $9,000 job, they see, $900 potential savings. So they think the price is $900. So I always kind of like steer them. So I was like, you're looking at the bottom numbers. This price here is if you become a member, and that's when I bring it up.
Okay.
And I let them know, with the membership, you get a up to 10% discount, on all the work that we do.
Even that day?
Yeah,
Okay.
even that day.
All right.
Yep, even that day. So yeah, you could save, $900 today.
Yeah.
Sure. No more service fees. So every time we come out here, we're going to come out. We're not going to charge you a service fee. And then you get a lifetime warranty, all the work that we do. So
Oh, wow. So you do a lifetime. That's great.
for as long as you're a member.
Yeah. Hey, no, I understand.
And I throw that in there as well, whether they catch it or not, I'm not sure, but you let them know, and for as long as you're a member, you get a lifetime warranty on all the work that we do. So
Are you set up monthly, or are they like
monthly.
they're set up monthly? And they all are.
There's some that will go ahead and do the annual. And we're set up to where if you do it monthly, I believe it's only like $129. And then the annual, if you want to pay it in full, you're looking at $199.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, why can't I just write a check for $129?
Right.
You know, you do get a deal if you give us a card.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we do it monthly recurring, you know.
Sure.
So they understand.
That's smart. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And so if they want to pay it in full, not that they won't get the discount, you know, they'll still become a member for a year. They'll still get the discount, no service fees and so forth. But it is a little bit more expensive to just pay it in full.
Sure. Sure. We were talking about options, so let's dig into it a little bit more. So when you've done your inspection, you've done all that stuff, do you go to the truck to kind of build your options? Do you do it in front of the customer?
Yeah.
Okay. You like to do it in front of your customer.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you quiet, or what are you saying? Is you kind of, is it all on a tablet, or you're writing stuff?
No, it's all on the system. It's all on the tablet. But as we're going through everything, you know, I basically, we're talking and building options.
Okay.
You know, so if they're telling me something, you know, I acknowledge that they're telling me something. And at the same time, I'm building the options. What I'm worried about is building the primary option, which is the peace of mind.
Right.
Everything we just talked about.
Okay.
And so the way I do it is, you know, the level down, which is the better option. I just remove one thing off that.
Okay.
You know,
If you do what, three options?
Three options.
3 options. Okay.
Yep. So usually, for me, usually it's just surge protection and removing the surge protector.
Okay.
So the last option that I have on there still has a main surge protector, but it doesn't have like the AC surge protector or the coax surge protector.
Okay.
You know, but the peace of mind that does. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's basically all I do. You know,
Okay.
is remove one of the surge protectors on each option.
Yeah.
So when I explain everything to them, I let them know the difference in price and all these options. It's just the level of surge protection that you want to have.
Okay.
You know, but it still includes everything that I just talked about.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So get some thinking. There is occasions where I build that fourth option, which is what they called us out there to do.
Oh, okay. When does that happen? When they push hard again?
Right. That happens when I see that they're like, you know, I don't think these options are going to work for me. You know, I don't, just pay your service fee or whatnot.
Yeah.
When that happens, it's you know, well, you did call me out to, you know, fix this outlet for you, and I want to show you what that cost. You know?
Okay.
So I can build that up for them fairly quick and let them know, look, our diagnostic charge is this. You know, we can definitely take care of that one item. And the reason why I was offering the other stuff is because it is safety.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
so yeah, it depends, and depending on our customer.
Sure.
So yeah, if it is one of those that, you know, this is what I called you out here for, or well, this is all I want. Yeah. So
Yeah.
here, here you go. This is what you called me out here for.
Yeah.
I still have these other options here for you. So think about them. Let me know. I'm going to go ahead and fix this for you right now. You know, so usually most cases they think about them.
Okay.
I'm like, how much did you say this was? And so I let them know again. And yeah, go ahead and do the surge protect.
Well, when you say you let them think about it, like you sitting there, let them think about it, you're like, oh, let me go check the.
So that's what I mean. So I let them know. It's like, you know, I at least get what they called me out there for.
Yeah.
You know, because I always have it in my mind, and I always tell my guys, you know, every little bit counts.
Yeah.
So you go to a call and you walk out there with the service fee, you do not service the customer.
No.
You know, not service at home. So, yeah, I let them know, even the, you know, $100, $200, $300 call guilds, you know. So at least what they called you out there for, you know, take care of that.
Right.
You know, and show them what we're all about. So when I say, you know, think about it, I already got a signature for the diagnostic.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So I leave the tablet with them. They can play with it. They can do whatever they want with it.
Yeah.
I go and I start working, fixing on what they need. And when I come back, you know, sometimes they're like, well, you know, I saw this option. I saw everything it includes, you know.
Sometimes it's got to digest it, right?
Yeah.
Because I didn't expect that much, but, you know, it makes sense. Because, you know, you explained it well throughout the call, right?
Exactly.
You didn't just hit them with it.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
I tell them what I'm going to recommend, you know.
Yeah.
As long as.
Oh, you'll say that throughout the call. I'm going to recommend you probably should.
Yes, exactly.
That's great.
That's why they're with me. You know?
Yeah.
So they're walking
So you're not just educating, you're recommending.
I'm recommending.
Yeah. That's a big difference. So that's great. Is the club included in every option that you roll out, or is it just a couple of the options?
So it's not included right off the back. Like I said, our system,
Oh, it just has the line.
it has the discount,
Okay.
how much they can save. So, if we get to talking about the club membership,
Yeah.
I'll let them know, hey, listen, your price was 9,000, but you see you're going to save 900. This is your new price.
Okay. Does it show a finance price too?
Yes.
You guys do a lot of finance.
Well, it defaults to the monthly payments on the system. So I let them know that too. So when I'm presenting the options, it's like, you're looking at monthly payments because we offer financing, but I'm gonna go ahead and scroll over and let you know what the total is.
Right.
If you're interested in financing, we can talk about that as well.
How many financing options do you give, or is it just the one default option that's there?
The one default option that's there is one of the options.
Okay.
But I let them know what that option is. We have plenty of options.
Okay. What's your biggest financing product that you sell?
As far as the name of the company,
Well, no, just like what do people like?
we have a 12-month interest free.
Okay.
We have an 18-month interest free, and the one that we introduced it, and sometimes customers get a little shocked about it.
Yeah.
But we have a 15-year.
15 year.
15-year.
Really? Holy moly.
We have an 8-year.
Yeah.
And then we have a 15-year. Now, the 15-year is pretty neat because
30 cents a day or so.
we call it the mortgage finance.
That's amazing.
But it's based on your credit.
Sure.
So that one, the interest rate can be anywhere from 7% all the way up to 29.99%.
Yeah.
Depending on your credit.
Right.
But it's all what's it called, deferred. So you don't have to pay all the interest.
Right.
If you get the money and you want to pay it off, yeah, exactly. So you don't have to pay. So I did have a couple customers that they just bought the house.
Oh, yeah.
They're remodeling the house. That 15-year plan was like perfect for them.
Why?
They're like, I don't mind paying $35 a month.
Yeah.
And
What do you think about it?
yeah, exactly. So qualified them, and we're looking at a $10,000 job, and they're like, yeah, go ahead and do it.
Right.
So it works out.
Everyone wins.
It's not for everyone, but
Sure.
it's
But it's there.
but it's there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Holy cow, that's interesting. Okay. Let's talk a little objections. So I'm like, you said you'll build the a la carte option, right?
Yeah.
How do you get any situations where you have other bids?
Yes.
How do you handle those situations?
Yeah, definitely. So usually I when I find out that they're looking for other estimates or whatnot, usually I let them know. It's like, well, I do have 3 estimates here that I worked up for you.
Yeah.
Kind of like steer them back to
Yeah.
what we're doing.
Sure.
And I understand, you want to save 10%, 50% today. Let me go ahead and talk to my manager.
Yeah.
Let me make a phone call.
Yeah.
Let me go to bat for you.
Right.
Let me see if I can make that happen for you.
I like how you put it. You let me go to bat for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let me work this out for you. And,
Sure.
if I can get it down to where you're looking at me,
Yeah.
can we go ahead and take care of the work for you today?
Oh, so you make sure you get them to close right there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like to put it as like it's a sales tactic.
Yeah.
It's more of like, do you trust me
Right.
that, I'm going to go and get in trouble for you?
Right.
I just want to make sure that we're going to be able to take care of this job for you.
Right.
So a lot of my customers say, yeah, hey, you can get it down to this price. You got yourself a deal.
Okay.
So, and I try not to go back and forth with the customer.
Right.
Because sometimes customers, when they see that you can bring down the price, let's bring it down. Exactly. And it's like, well, nah, we can't really, we're not a used car sales dealership.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah.
We're not going to go back and forth on this. You told me that, we can get it down to this price. I was able to do that for you.
Yeah.
And, we can definitely take care of this for you today.
Do you ever kind of lean on your guarantees and talk about the company and this is what you get?
Oh, for sure.
Right. Yeah. How do you differentiate yourself versus other electricians at that point?
Yeah. So basically, one of the main things that we use is the 100% satisfaction guaranteed, and I let them know when I'm getting that pushback, it's like, hey, listen, everything that we do here today, we're going to make sure that you're happy with, that you're satisfied with the work that we did. If there's something that's not right or something that you thought we could have done better, you can let me know. I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to fix it for you. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
A lot of customers think that because we're in their house and they called us and we have because we give them a time frame when we're sure we're going to be there, 8:30 to 10:30 or whatever. They think that that's all the time that we have. So I reassure them and I let them know, hey, listen, I'm not rushing through this job.
Yeah.
I'm pretty efficient at what I do and I'm good at what I do, but I'm not rushing through this job. I'm here for you. And they're like, oh, you don't have any other calls to go to? Like, we might, but that's not our worry right now. Our worry is to take care of your home, So I just reassure them, we're here for you.
Right.
And when it comes down to like, a lot of people like it where, if we're going to replace a panel, I let them know, hey, it's going to be 3 hours without power.
Right.
I can get very comfortable in here. So if you need to run errands, you need to do something, go grab some lunch or whatever,
Yeah.
go ahead and do that while we work,
Yeah.
Hopefully when you come back, we're ready to, turn the power back on. So
That's great.
so they like that reassurance. And, and I always let them know too, is like, at no point are we going to leave your house and leave you without power.
Right.
Because nobody likes to be in that situation.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely one of those where, you have a time to start, but you don't know what time you're going to finish.
Sure. Yeah.
So I let them know too, this is what it is. And we're going to take care of your home. We're going to take care of you.
Are you able to always, there's probably some job you sell and you can't get to till maybe the next day or something like that. So how do you avoid those cancellations? Do you start something then?
Exactly. Lock the job in.
Yeah. All right.
And I always tell my guys, if you sold surge protection, grounding system, whatever the case is, go ahead and do that because you really don't need to cut power for that. You don't need to, in Florida, we have to land the grounding system in the meter can. We do have to remove the meter to go ahead and do that. But I always let them know, do the grounding system, leave the wire hanging there until the next day when you can actually pull the meter and stuff. Like, yeah, exactly. Put in that surge protector. A lot of the techs are like, even if it's an old panel, yeah, put it in there. Still surge protecting the home,
Right.
So yeah, put it in the old panel. You can always take it off and put it in the new panel,
Right.
Just own that job somehow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes it's necessary to, if it's a redevice or whatnot, start the redevice. Start in a room, 4 outlets and a switch. It's not gonna kill you.
Right.
I know sometimes we're out there late, and it's one of those. No matter what we do, we're not gonna finish, but at least do something because that locks in that customer and knows that you already started the job. You're gonna go back. You're gonna finish it.
Sure.
But yeah, if you sell the job and don't do anything, it's easier for them to say, you know what, I don't want anything.
Yes.
Get buyer's remorse.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've heard you mention throughout your guide, how much do you guys train at Stockwise?
Sure. So we have sales trainings on Tuesdays.
Okay.
And then Thursdays is technical day.
Okay.
So we take tests on code on Thursdays. Or we go over questions that the techs that might have.
Okay.
So we always...
Do you lead the training? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You lead all the training.
Yes.
How long's that been going on?
Roughly about a year now.
For a year now?
Yeah.
That's insane.
So, yeah. So, and then Tuesdays, like I said, sales training.
So how do you decide what you're going to train then on Tuesdays? Do you just try and do a segment of the call, or what do you do?
Right. So it depends on what's going on with the guys.
Yeah.
Because we always follow up with our customers. And then the guys, they're very open. And so they share what's going on as well. So we pick up on what they need help with. Overcoming objections or building value, stuff like that. So it depends on what's going on. And we try to listen to what they're having troubles with.
Okay.
And that's what we train on.
We do a lot of it's a dirty word, but role play. or do you do more
skills practice? Yes, that's what I want to call it. Yes. So yes, we do a lot of that, and yeah, we never want to feel like we're picking on the guys, and
No.
but we obviously know who needs most of the training. And,
Sure.
So we usually try to do it to where the guys that are comfortable doing it, myself included, do the role play first, skills training first.
That's great. Yeah.
And then
Put yourself out there.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Kind of like show them how it's done.
Yeah.
And then they can, pick up, little nuggets here and there, and then,
That's great.
get up in front of their peers and do it. And we always let them know, it's harder to do it in front of your peers because, everybody's watching.
They know what you should say.
Yes, exactly. Than it is in the field.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Once you're in the field, I mean, if you master it here with your peers, you're gonna, just ace it out there. You're gonna do a great job out there. So.
How much certain path training do you have? I know did you go today or this week?
Yes.
So the emotional one.
The emotion.
How was that? When did you think of that?
Oh, it was great. It was excellent. Just learning how to read the emotions, body language, and what
Right.
people, send out. Yeah, it's a great training.
Yeah.
Great training.
Do you guys utilize any of the videos and stuff in training? Or
We have.
Yeah.
We have.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
it's always it's just nice to have an outside resource every once in a while, right?
Yes, definitely.
That's cool. Well, last question, kind of what motivates you to be a high achiever and to do as well as you do? I mean, it takes daily focus, right? So
Yes.
how do you do it?
Well, family. I have my two little ones, and my wife always believed in me. And when we were in insurance, it was one of those where a couple things triggered me switching, to doing the electrical again. But one of those was the fact that I reached a point where that's as far as I was going to get, unless I became an agency owner. And
Yeah.
I really didn't want to do all that. But my wife always steered me into, hey, you should do electrical again.
Yes.
I know you'll do a great job on that and whatnot. So I was, like I said, I listened to her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, my family is what motivates me every day, and waking up in the morning and seeing them, it's just, it's knowing that I have a responsibility to take care of them.
Yeah.
And I've always been a competitive guy. So just, we have a goal at work.
Okay.
And we have a number that we should be hitting. I always strive to hit higher than that. My personal goal.
Yeah.
We just doing this type of work and setting my personal goal, knowing what I want my paycheck to be.
Yeah.
It allows me to take care of my family, take care of our personal needs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's just, I'm a very religious guy. I don't talk about it or whatnot. But God has been good to us.
Yeah.
And I give him all the glory, all the praise. He's been good to my family. Billy has been such a great boss, I can't say thank you enough to God, Billy, my family.
Yeah.
It's just been so many accomplishments that I've been able to take care of and accomplish
Yeah.
while doing this work.
That's great.
So.
Great. Very last question. What advice might you have for a young electrician, maybe like where you were, when you first started and doing service at this level? Like what piece or two of advice might you give someone watching or listening?
It's a job where you got to love what you do. So if you love what you do on a daily basis, you'll be successful. But always stay humble. It's very important. You will make the money. You will hit your numbers. You follow the process, you'll get there. But along with, don't want to sound like Spider-Man here or whatever. Great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
You will make ends meet. You'll make more than that.
Yeah.
Doing this type of work. And so, for us, it's been staying humble and knowing who's given us all the opportunities that we have, so
That's good stuff. Well, great. Well, John, thank you for spending so much time with us. I think this turned out great. I really appreciate it.
yeah, no problem. Yeah.
That's Jonathan Unzueta Rojas of Top Flight Electric in Winter Haven, Florida, who sold and installed over $764,000 in residential electrical work. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If so, please like and subscribe on YouTube. If you're on your favorite podcast player, please leave us a 5-star review. The 2 seconds you take to leave a review will help other success-minded contractors like you find us and hopefully get a little bit better, which elevates our entire industry. And please join me for future episodes. This has been The Successful Contractor, powered by Certain Path.
The Successful Contractor podcast is part of the Certain Path family. Certain Path builds successful home service businesses and has for 23 years. We do it by providing contractors with a proven path to success, professional coaching, software solutions, and a member community of over 1,000 contractors just like you. Doubling your sales with a 20% net profit and an inspiring company culture is all possible. Let us show you the way. With Certain Path, success is made certain. Visit www.mycertainpath.com for more information.